Well, good morning, folks. My name is Nick Berkheimer. I'm a technology specialist here at FarmQA, and I'm really excited to be presenting today's webinar where we're going to be talking about using FarmQA for making decisions mostly related to fungicide applications. Now, for those who don't know, I got my bachelor's degree at North Dakota State University in Natural Resource Management and my master's degree in soil science. So a lot of what I like to see that I do here at FarmQA is being able to translate some of the needs of producers and kind of get that into the software. And so it's really fun for me to be able to find certain applications that we have and how people can use that. So one thing I've been seeing a lot of recently, mostly on Twitter and social media, is a lot of our friends up in Canada are starting to see their wheat get to anthesis, which means that when we're at flowering, we're going to start to get to a lot of fungicide timing stuff. This is our chance to really be able to get a good application in there to ward off stuff like scab. So what I think of how FarmQA can help people with this is about collecting the information that you need to be able to make a proper management decision, especially in a years like this, where we have such volatile prices for fuel and our actual product itself. It can be a really difficult decision to say, do I want to put on a fungicide, or am I just going to write it out and hope that I can limit my inputs so I can ultimately meet some costs elsewhere? So that's what we're going to focus on today. Is we're going to talk about how certain FarmQA functionalities can help you make those better management decisions over the long term or just within your field season. So some things that we're going to talk about today, I'll give you a bit of a roadmap. First, we're going to talk about how you gather information from the field to help you make these kind of decisions. We're also going to look at how you can look at weather data within FarmQA to give you a better idea of if you're going to see certain pressures from pests or diseases or anything along those lines. And then we're also ultimately going to help you make some informed decisions and how you can execute that within the FarmQA app itself. So with that, we're going to go hop right into my demo here, and I'm going to go into my FarmQA account. So here you'll see this is my mock-up farm that I've built within FarmQA that we're looking at managing. I've got 4 years of data going all the way back to 2019, and that's kind of the first place that I really wanted to start, is showing how we can start even before we're in this field season. Let's talk about how we can go back to your previous year's data and how we can use that to help you start to identify some areas where you could be seeing issues from certain pests or diseases. A lot of this comes from our crop rotation tab. You're going to find that here in the fields view over here on the side. So I'm going to go over to fields, and then you'll see here I have crop rotation right here. So what this does is this shows me all of the crops that I have planted within the last 4 years in my account. Now, a lot of what I like to do with this is that you can see where we're planting things either in a row or where we're actually maintaining our cropping sequence. As you can see here, I've got this account set up for the most part to do a corn, wheat, soybean rotation, but there are a couple errors in here. You can see that we do have some fields where we're doing back-to-back wheat, back-to-back corn, stuff like that. Now, let's say that we're going back in 2021. It's late 2021, early 2022, and we're saying, okay, we're planting wheat this year. That's what I want to go with. Now, we have some fields here in 2021 that were also planted in wheat. Okay, so we're planting wheat in some fields back to back. We're going to see some increased pest pressure, some increased fungicide pressure, stuff like that. So what I can do is that you can organize all of this. You can organize this page by columns. So I can take my 2021 column, click it, drag it up, and now you can see that all of my field crop histories are sorted by different crops. So first off, I can see in 2021 all the fields that I have planted in soybean. So this can help me make some decisions potentially about if I'm applying a 40-pound per acre N credit to these fields. But what's really important here is that I can see all the fields that were planted in hard red spring wheat in 2021. So now I've identified the fields where I can likely see increased pest pressure and that I could potentially have some issues with. Now, another great thing that you can do with this is that as you want to share this, you can go click this button and export this to an Excel spreadsheet right here. This can be if you want to either share it with some of your growers or share it with an agronomist or something along those lines, or do some other work in that. We have all of this information right here. You can see here's that same column that I just shared. So another thing that we can do with this information is that now you know within the crop rotation tab, okay, I've identified my fields where I do have this issue. What's another way that I can keep track of that? Well, we also have this idea called field notes that I can show you. So I'm going to go back to the map, and I'm going to find one of those fields that I was having issues with. So they were mostly named 1s and 2s once this reloads. But what I can do is that I can go back in and I can make a note in the field. So I can click on this. So what I can do is that I can add a new field note for either all growing seasons or just this growing season. Now, a lot of why I want to be doing this is that within the FarmQA scouting app, you can mostly just look at one field season's worth of data, and that's just kind of a way to simplify your workflow and everything that you're looking at. So whenever I'm in 2022, I don't want to be going back and forth between growing seasons and seeing like, okay, this was wheat, and then this was not wheat, and then this was corn, and yada yada. So what I can do is I can go here, add a little note that says, was wheat in 2021? Keep an eye out for sure. We're good. That's saved. And now I can also access this from the FarmQA scouting app, which I can show you right here that I got pulled up. The screen's a little small, but this is kind of the best representation of how your FarmQA scouting app is going to be looking on your phone. So I'm going to sync this bad boy up real quick, and I'm going to go back and find that field, and I can show you what that note's going to look like. And this gets a lot back into the actual collecting your scouting data. And you can see here we've got this note loaded, and I can read this note whenever I'm going in and scouting. So now that I have this information here, I know what I'm looking for in the field. So those are some of the ways that we can use our previous year's data to kind of make some decisions this year. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk more about our in-season stuff. So we've already planted all of our crops. We've made all those plans. Now we're going to go here and we're going to go and talk about our weather data. So a lot of looking at weather in terms of making decisions about fungicide and insecticide spraying is looking in the future and saying, this is where we think we're going to go. There's going to be increased pressure. I'm going to want to scout for this. I might want to spray. What FarmQA does a really good job at is being able to show you what your growing season has looked like so far. We have a built-in integration with Aris Weather, where we're going to be able to show you your weather across the growing season and even going back the last 6 months within your fields. But the big thing that we're able to do is that we're able to compile all of your weather in with our virtual weather stations. So all I got to do here is I got to go to settings, go over to sensors, and here we have our built-in virtual weather stations. So all a virtual weather station is that it's a point associated with your account, and then we collect all of the weather that Eris is sending us from that specific location, and then we're able to record that over your growing season. In the map, you can see I've got it right here in the middle of my farm. And this gives me my current weather conditions within the area of my farm. And I go back a whole week to show me my daily temperatures. So one thing that this is nice is that right here, I'm starting to get an idea of what temperatures are looking like. If things are getting too hot, and then I might be seeing some pressures from there, or if things are getting a little too cold. But we want to get a little deeper. We want to go further in. So again, like I said, I can go to settings and then go over to sensors, and then I can click on my weather station. And now I got the full week's worth of weather. But not only that, for temperature, I'm getting dew point and I'm getting average daily temperature. So you can see the points where we're going to start to get some dew kind of popping up, getting a little more moisture on our plants. We've had a couple of those instances in the last week, so that's something to consider. But then we're also getting below this, you can see our precipitation events. Now, we've had a little bit of a low precip in this area in the last week. We just had this one real rain event where we got just shy of half an inch of rain. So that's something to consider, but maybe not anything crazy. Now, another idea that you can get from this is that in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, we're getting our total rainfall for this farm within the last week, and we're getting our total average daily temperature. So that's a way for you to get these ideas. But what I really like about this page is that you're able to go and just get your last 30 days. And this is where I think we start to get some interesting stuff. So first off, you can see I'm looking here within the last couple of weeks, and you can see that we've got a really steady trend in our temperature at this farm. The blue bar that you're seeing, by the way, that's our temperature range. Those are our highs and lows for the day. So you can see that our highs are somewhere in the mid to upper 70s. Lows are getting down to around 60 below 40 at night. So we're not getting too warm, but we're getting some pretty consistent temperature. And we're kind of missing out on these big swings that we had earlier in the season where we were starting to get really hot. And that would probably lead me to have some more concerns, especially with, as you can see, we have these rainfall events. This is what I really like, is that right here we can line this up and say, okay, I had two big rain events about between 2 and 3 weeks ago. I got just shy of 8 tenths of an inch of rain. Then I got just over an inch. So about 2 inches here within this week span, and things were getting pretty toasty, as you can see. We're starting to break those daily highs, are getting above to the 80s or 90s. This is an area where I would have some cause for concern and would say, okay, now we want to start get out there and start scouting for some diseases. And with some precipitation like this, it's like, okay, we also might want to consider some insects later on. Now, that probably would have been more within this time frame than what we're experiencing right now, but still being able to see something like this as it pops up and keep checking this and saying, okay, we have this high precipitation level, we're getting these higher temperatures. This is a cause for concern. Let's get out there and get scouting. Now, I don't want to quite get away from weather just yet because there's some more weather functionality that we have that I'm really, really into. And a lot of that is related to this weather station idea. With weather stations, we're also able to use this to calculate your growing degree days and growing degree units for your fields. Now, one way that we can get to this is we can just click on your field, and then at the bottom of your field information pane, which comes up from the left-hand side of the screen, that's where you're going to be able to access your growing degree day information for your field. So I'm going to go ahead and click back in on this field 1 again, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can see here's my total accumulated growing degree days for this field at this time at the very bottom. Now, there's 3 big things that you're going to need to set up in your account to get growing degree days going. One, you need your virtual weather station, which we have set up. Number 2, you're going to need to have a planting date associated with your field. This is just because we need to know when to start calculating our growing degree days, and you need to set up metrics. Now, metrics is related to FarmQA's analytics feature, which is a premium add-on, and that's a really great tool that we have, and probably our best tool that we have, honestly, for being able to look at growing degree days, growing degree units, and being able to track all this information to come in and make these better management decisions. So we're going to get a little bit into setting that up and what you're going to need for that. So for growing degree days, like I said, first need your weather station. You can, usually we can set those up for you on our side. You have to contact FarmQA support, and then we get your account set up for however many weather stations that you'll want to go, and we can talk about that process. But in this situation, the weather station is set up and we're good to go. Everything else is going to have to be done here on your organization page to get this set up. So you're going to have to go here. First off, I'm at the base level of my organization at the Momskog Farms. I want to go to Flum Area Farms because that's what I'm working with this one. So you can see here, I want to set up a default weather station. It's unspecified right now. I'm going to go and I'm going to get my Flum Area weather station and override existing metrics. Like I said, we record weather back to 6 months whenever we with our sign up with Aris Weather. So what we're able to do now is that we can calculate your growing degree days and precipitation back for 6 months. We're not going to really need that for a lot of these fields since we just planted them fairly recently, but that's kind of what we're looking at. So that's all set up. And then we also have our metrics. So what this means is I have to go over to analytics and I need to set up a metric for what I want to track. I've already set all of these up, but one of them, for example, is daily growing degree units. All I have to do here, as you can see, is that you set up a name, the category it's going to stay in, and then you can also set ranges here for what you want to see. So for example, here, I have my high end of my range is about 15 growing degree units. Once I kind of hit that number, I know it's like, okay, this is about where I want to be progressing. This is pretty good accumulation that we're getting. And a lot of where this pops up is when we actually start visualizing our metrics. So metric is set up here. How you visualize your metrics is over here in the Metrics Explorer page. This is where you start to get all this stuff set up. So as you can see here, I have all these metrics loaded in, but I have them all organized by category. So I have some crop development, I have some imagery, I do have my scab stuff, which we're going to be talking about, but then I also down here have my weather information. So I'm going to click on daily growing degree units. And so now I have this visualization of my growing degree units across all of my Flum area farms going back to the start of the growing season. Now, as you can see, we started off pretty low. Things are going to get a little chilly early on, but we've been kind of going up here a little bit as of late. Now, this is my entire growing season. Let's say I don't just want to look at this. I want to get a better idea of what's happening of more recent trends. So what you have to do is that you have to go over here and you can set either a custom range or you can set a date range to collect your data from. So I'm just going to go for the last 7 days. This is something that I really like to see because this just shows that I have a really, over the last week, fairly consistent growing degree unit accumulation. So you can see we're sitting between, it looks like our range is between about 12 and 20 with an average closer to 15 to 16 growing degree units per day. Taking this into account and kind of comparing this to our total growing degree units, we can kind of start to get some ideas of when we're going to start hitting some of these big crop development metrics, like when we're going to start hitting flowering, or whenever we're going to start to get our accumulation of protein within the grain head, to consider if we want to put like a late season fungicide or something like that on. So what this also looks like, and what else we can do, is that this is another way that we can track our precipitation. So we can look at our seasonal precipitation here, and you can see where our precipitation events are coming in for the farm. So total, we're looking at about 7 inches so far for the growing season, but I can go back and look over the current month, and then again, you can start to see where we're starting to get these accumulation events and where we're starting to get our rain coming in. Now, you might think, okay, it's a little bit of a little tricky where I have to go in and set this up each and every time I want to look at something. We are able to save these and set them up as metric views. All you got to do is press the save button right here and put in a name. And let's just say we want to look at seasonal precip. Save it. And now this will be saved over here in my views. You can see it's right here. I'm also, as you can see, I have some previous ones set up, including wheat growth stage. This is another one that I had set up previously. So this is another one that I really like, and this gets more into our scouting that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But what I'm able to do here is that I'm able to track my wheat growth stage. Now, one thing that we are working on is being able to track metrics for like a pick list. Normally people would think of something along these lines of growth stage as saying like we're at emergence, we're at tillering, there's a flag leaf has emerged, we're at heading, something like that. But what I can do right now is that I can turn those into numbers and say like, okay, we're between growth stages 0 and 13. So that's kind of what I've gone about here. And as you can see here, I went out, I scouted, and I put my field average level as 7. 7 approximately corresponds to flowering. So you can see here, all of these fields that I have are at flowering, which means that this is time for me to start going out and saying, all right, time to go and think about those fungicide applications. So I have all of that stored here. Now, it is nice to have all these views here, but as you can think of, as time goes on, it could get a little tricky to kind of sort through all of these if I have this filled up with all kinds of different metrics. That's why we also have our dashboard feature to be able to store everything in one place at one time. So this is one that I have set up for a different account to be able to look at all of my soils related data. What I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to make a new dashboard where I look at all of my stuff related to wheat growth and development. So I'm just going to call this my wheat development dashboard. And now I go over here and I go to add new panel. And this lets you pick from your previously existing metrics visualizations, and you're able to go in and add these all to your dashboard. So I want to put in spring wheat daily GDUs. I want to put in my wheat growth stage. And I want to put in my precipitation. So now, as you can see, I have all of this data stored right here. And I'm able to see everything that I want right here relating to my wheat growth and development. So for example, my wheat daily GDU, this is one that's stored over time. I can kind of watch and I can take a look and see how things are going over time. Now I can go, these are fully functional, by the way, and you're able to get the full view of everything happening here. So you can see here that my field average here, I'm getting about 20 GDUs for a lot of these fields. This one's looking about the same, and you're able to look at those over time. Again, this is very similar to what we showed previously in terms of our line graph. That kind of says that we're getting pretty consistent around 15 to 20 GDUs per day that we've had over the past month or so. But then we're also able to track our precipitation across our fields and see our development there. And like I said earlier, look at our wheat growth stage. So now that this is saved, I have access to this from our dashboard wherever I just when I log in. So all my information is right here, and that really helps with my workflow. Now that we have all this information brought in, let's talk a little bit more about getting this information into your account. And a lot of that comes from our scouting and figuring out how we want to go about our scouting. So I'm going to take you to the scouting tab quick, and I'm going to pull up a scouting template. Now, templates are really kind of the start of collecting your data. So I've already made this pre-made webinar template earlier, but you can see I've loaded this up with a lot of different questions that I find very useful to what we want to be talking about. One of them is going to be plant population. A lot of our decisions that come back to whether we spray or not can be related to what we're looking at in the field in terms of our total potential profits that we can make. Are we going to be getting a really good crop this year? Or are things not looking so great? That's why we have our plant population question here. Now, since I know I'm going to be looking at wheat, I have already set up our row spacing and row length parts of this question. We're going to be looking at 5 foot a row for each one, and we're going to be, because we know that we're looking at about an 8-inch row spacing approximately. So all I got to do when I go in and scout is put in my actual plant population count that I'm getting, and I can get those for all my fields. This is where I have my growth stage questions set up, and I can also look at diseases and pests. So now that I have all this set up, I'm going to go over to Scouting quick, and I'm going to give you an idea of what this is going to look like. So let's go in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and scout one of my fields. These are all my wheat fields that I've been talking about. I'm just going to go, click, and I'm going to choose my webinar template. And I'm going to go start adding my observations. So now I can go in the field. You can see my row spacing and my row length are already preset. I just got to put in what I actually count. So let's say within this row, I'm going to count about 80 head of wheat. And now this automatically pops out my plant population. As you can see here, we're looking around 1 million plants per acre. So we're looking pretty all right here. I can also go in and put in my growth stage. Let's say that we're just prior to heading. And now what's also interesting is that we can start looking at where our disease and pest pressures are. So not only are we able to collect numbers on this, for example, I can go here to pest observation, and I can say, okay, I was scouting in the field. I saw 3 grasshopper nibs. What I can do now as well is we can really start to get into the idea of whether we spray a whole field or if we're just going to be spraying part of the field. For this, what I can do, I can press these 3 dots. Now I can either take a picture or I can draw on the map. And I want to show you this function right now. So now I have this layer of my field. Let's say I'm scouting over here. I was able to spot these grasshoppers right around there for this one. So now that I have this location set, I'm able to say, this is where I spotted those. This is where we can look at more pressure. Another way that we can go about doing this, I'm going to go do this in a different scouting report, is that you can also just draw on the map and show them an area where you found your stuff. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's say this one I was scouting and I found a big area. Let's say I found about 5 grasshoppers whenever I was looking, and I want to show that this was more of a broad range as opposed to just one location. You can actually also draw on the map, so I can go and just say this was the spot where I saw the grasshoppers, or if you just want to kind of also make it easier on yourself, you can just draw it as a circle, drag, move it around, and then that's how you're able to show where you found your pest pressure in the field. So now that we're good, and now you can see this also pops up right here. So whenever you talk to your growers, you are able to show them exactly where on your scouting report. On your scouting report, you're able to show exactly where you're seeing these. There's another interesting use case that we have for this I'm going to go over in just a second, but I want to show you what your output's going to be. So now we're going to go over back to my scouting tab. And here's the scouting, and let's load that scouting report that I just submitted so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's take in a second. So now I want to go back and I want to talk about what another way that we have to show pest pressure. So we also have this idea of point layers. I'm going to pull up what a point layer looks like here. So here we have all of our point layers that you can see from the actual web application. So under markers, I want to go down and I want to look at my scouting locations. I'm going to click and turn this on, and you can see all of my scouting locations that I've had from the recent growing season. So this one that I want to bring up real quick, I have set as wild oats. Now, some of our users have found that they're able to set scouting locations and they're able to identify different patches of different pests or anything along those lines, and they can really easily show them to their producers. As you can see right here, I'm able to show where I found this wild oats location right here from the FarmQA web app. But now I want to go back to the mobile app and I want to show you where I was able to see that. So I'm going to go back to fields. And now when I'm scouting, let's say in this field, again, I got this one little patch of wild oats, but I'm finding a lot more and I want to keep putting those down. So I'm just going to go here, add, click on the field, and here we're going to have drop pin at location. Now I want to set this to a scouting point since that's what I'm actually finding, and I want to set this as wild oats, save pin. And now I have this pin here. Now I want to keep going because I'm finding a lot of patches in this area. Same thing. And now you can start to see we're putting together what we're actually seeing in the field and showing our producers where we're actually finding these disease pressures. So now the important thing here is that let's say this is what I found in the field. I'm going to drop in at location one more time and put down one more wild oats. Now we get back into our decision-making idea. So as you can see here, we've got a couple little patches of wild oats in our 600 odd acre field. This might not be something that you want to spray the entire field for. You're just going to go in and you're going to want to spot spray something like this. So while we are able to get a really broad idea of what's happening in your fields, whenever you can go in a scouting report and say that you have made these observations, they can draw on it. This is another way where you're able to say, this is where I'm spotting these pressures. This is something to consider doing. And this is something that's very easy to show to your producers if they have the FarmQA app, or if you just want to take a screenshot and send it to them. These are some ways that you're able to show that information. Now, let's get down to the point where we're actually executing on this. We know where our pressures are. We've seen all this stuff come in. Let's go and talk about how we can actually execute on what we're seeing. So now I'm going to go in here and I can actually just go in to advice and I can add a recommendation. So recommendations are ways that we're able to track actually making a management decision and applying a fungicide, herbicide, anything along those lines. So I'm going to go in. From here, I can choose bulk fields that I want to add to. I'm going to go back and I'm going to find a couple fields. Let's say for these wheat fields, it's like, okay, we've had we've seen some rain in the past. We've had some decently high temperatures. We've had some fields where in previous years we planted wheat. I know that I want to apply a fungicide this year to be able to ward off scab or anything like that. So now I know these fields that I want to add it to. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add products, and I'm going to go down. I can either search for this or scroll down. I know for this, I want to put in ProLine 480 to be able to spray for that. Now, what's also great is that for this product, I'm able to go in and preset all this information within my account. So I have my pre-harvest interval, my rainfast hours, and my re-entry period. Now, this is more of a high priority because I'm like, we're pretty much at flowering. I want to get this out right now. So I can also set a date and time to do this. I want this done by the end of the week. Submit. And then I have this submitted within my recommendations. Now, whenever you go out and spray it, or one of your scouts or someone else in your organization goes out to spray it, they can have access to this too. Select. They can select this, and then when they're done, they can complete the recommendation right there. Now, you can also use this for this batch recommendation that we have. You can also uncheck and just check the fields that you actually did, or all of them, and then press complete. And then now there's a record that you sprayed that in that field at that one time. So now, another way that we can go about doing this, let's go back to this field with our wild oats example. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to create a recommendation just for this field that I want to take a look at. So now what I can do, I have this field, I'm going to go into edit field details, and I can specify a custom area. So like I said, this isn't a field where we want to go in everything. We're just kind of looking at some spot spraying. So I'm going to go specify a custom acreage. I'm only going to estimate that we're only going to spray about 100 acres of this, and I'm going to put in spot spray for wild oats based on scouting locations here. So now I have this. I can go back in, add a product, or you can also go in and you can just choose a product mix that I have. So I'm going to put in my wheat post emergence because that's going to have a lot of the chemicals that I want. But this is another preset thing that you can have that you can look at and show all of your chemical products that you have that you want to apply here. So click done. And again, I have all my information preloaded so that I'm ready to go. But if you need to edit this, you can also go in and say, this has 6 hours rain fast, re-entry interval is going to be 24 hours on this. And we're going to put in a very similar start and end date. This one's not going to be as high priority. We're going to keep it at a medium priority, submit, and good. So now whenever we get our chemical totals from this too, we know that it's just a partial recommendation that we're looking at. So That's most of what I had about decision making. I hope that I did a good job at showing some of our functionality and a lot of what we have that's related to being able to make some decisions related to these management implications within FarmQA. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for coming. Again, if you have any questions, you can either forward it to one of our contacts. Here's my email. You can see here on the screen and our phone number if you have any questions. Or as always, you can contact FarmQA support and get more information from our blog. Again, thanks for watching the video, and please let us know if you have any questions. I hope this was insightful, and I hope that FarmQA is able to help you scout and make better management decisions this year. Thanks a bunch, and have a great day.